story. There's got to be repercussions for getting it wrong. Liam, I'll start with you. Shouldn't there be?
Oh, there should be, and
a month's pay.
And there is.
There aren't.
The repercussions, and without without wanting to talk out of school, I'm sure Pauline has a nice new wing to our house, courtesy of the people that made a mistake. Defamation law, if you're defamed, you get up to $250,000, I think, in Victoria.
What about the Godwin-Gretsch saga?
Well, yeah.
No one got money for that.
Well, Godwin-Gretsch and Utegate and all that, I think Malcolm Turnbull sort of may have stopped being the next
huge
Prime Minister
repercussions from a story that was bullshit. But there are no repercussions to the journalist, no repercussion to the paper, no financial repercussion.
Oh, there is.
What? Well, Steve Lewis, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's repercussions.
What were the repercussions for him for getting that story completely wrong?
Well, there's reputational repercussions. There's,
I'd have to chime in here, Headley, and say that the repercussions are that you still remember this, and a lot of people remember it out there. I mean, the Sunday. Listen, we won't say which paper, but there's a paper that still probably hasn't fully managed to move on for famously calling an election wrong several years back.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's not really going to cause any problems. It was just premature and they got it wrong, so it was a mistake. But that's not getting something wrong where it can cause real harm to someone, and you can't take it back.
But that can happen. But Liam's right in that the Australian defamation laws are amongst the toughest in the world. There's far more restrictions on publishing information here in Australia than in most countries. And if you talk about a cure to actually stop anything that might be incorrect being printed in the papers, then the actual cure will end up being far worse than the actual illness, really.
Okay, well, I'll ask you this one last question for you and Liam. Protecting the source, right? Very honourable, and you won't get stories if you don't protect the source. When the source is bullshitted to you for their own malicious or financial gain, shouldn't then any prohibition on naming the source be gone? Shouldn't you name an incorrect source, Liam?
I think it's an absolute protection, and I think the only way...
What if he's used you?
If
he's used you to be malicious against a third party, to giving you information about a story that's turned out... there's an example that I can't remember where...
No, what I tended to do when I was on the road was, if I suspected that was going on and someone was wanting to be anonymous and off the record and all the rest, I would try and make a deal whereby I'd say, well, we'll do this, but if it turns out you're lying, at that point I get to name you.
Right.
I think that's the practical way to handle that.
Well, that should be the way. Mark, any thoughts on that?
I'm with Leon on this, mate. I do think you have to stand firm on these things, or your capacity to actually sort of get stories and get them out is severely impeded. I've been in a situation one time we've been hauled up before a Royal Commission and asked to give sources, and actually initially sentenced to 3 years in jail.
Wow.
Which they then backtracked on, but once you actually cave in on these issues, particularly when there's no issue that someone's covering up illegal behaviour or absolutely lying to you, but once you give ground on that, how can anyone who comes to you wanting to blow the whistle against powerful people or governments or so on have confidence that you'll protect them?
Well, they've got to.
You've just got to hold the line, and I think it's more important in the long term.
Okay, well, it's good that you and Liam agreeing. It's like Kane and Daniel Bryan hugging each other in the WWE. It's
mate, we're all in the same game.
We're all tied with the same brush.
We'll have our punch ups, but we'll have a drink together after. Talking about being together, I did notice also when I picked up Liam's paper when it came to our office tonight, that we picked almost exactly the same picture of Buddy Franklin to splash across our front.
Really, great minds think alike. That's what it is.
Right. Speaking of that, I was going to ask about plagiarism.
What about plagiarism?
Well, it's so easy to detect now.
Photoshop.
No, what I'm saying is people are grabbing articles from online journals and then passing them off, paragraphs as their own in conjunction with other things. Surely people, I mean, okay, they're time poor and resource poor, but there's really no excuse, is there?
No, there's not.
I've got to say, while the loving's still going, Mark and myself are probably on the receiving end of that sort of offence more than newspaper journalists doing it. The real issue for newspapers is sort of
survival.
Bloggers and other people just ripping your content.
And finally, Charlie Nikakis, who would you rather work for, Gina Reinhardt or Rupert Murdoch?
The one who pays more.
Well, okay. On that note, Mark, thank you very much. Once again, the big headline in the Sunday Age.
Principal faces new probe over bonuses, Headley.
Okay, and in the Herald Sun, what's the big headline?
Don't let me hang, Headley.
Okay. And they both finish with Headley. Good on you, Mark.
Night, boys.
See you. Talk to you next week, Mr. Mark Forbes, the editor. And what's the difference between the editor and the chief of staff? What is the chief of staff's role?
Mark's much more senior than me. I sort of sit between the editor and the reporters.
And do what?
And bring up the donuts. And pass on the editor's wishes to the reporters.
Okay.
Can't he do that himself? or is there a problem with communication?
No problem.
I'm completely irreplaceable, and I resent the idea that it can be streamlined to make me replaceable.
Now, we were at the point where Tony Bockbell arrived in Greece, but let's go back to how did he get big?
How did he get big?
And who did you speak to? And who did you speak to in the book to find out?
He got big because he met some people in his first stint in jail.
Well,
and one of them was a cook.
That's true.
By name of...
I don't think... Can we...
Yeah, this was years ago.
You suppressed?
No. This is before all this. He's from New South Wales, anyway.
Is he dead yet?
No. Not to my knowledge, anyway.
Well...
He was supposedly a very, very, very good cook. And in those days...
A cook of drugs.
I think we're talking about the same person. I think he's suppressed. There's a fella I refer to, friend of the Morans, you're talking about?
No.
Okay, someone else?
Independent, totally independent. He was on the run from New South Wales, came down to Victoria, started doing some independent cooks, got caught, got thrown into, where did I say?
Well, one of the jails.
MLC. The remand centre as it was then. And that's where Tony met him.
It just shows you, goes back to our
Did you say MLC?
I might have, but that's suppressed.
Wow, we've missed that story.
Freudian slip.
No, but it goes back to what I said before. That's one of the repercussions of the drug laws, is that people for petty things get thrown into jail with people with great experience.
Well, the jails are, I agree with you to the extent that jails are a great learning environment and to get the proper criminal skill set and how to meet people and
that's right.
connect and really hone your trade. I don't disagree with you about that, whether that reflects on the drug laws or whatever. Tony, at the start of his career, was trying some, legitimate income-making activities, owning a milk bar, and sort of where it stopped, owning a pizza parlour. But he fancied himself as sort of an entrepreneur. He's not your typical sort of blue singlet crim who just does smash and grabs. He was trying to build up an egg, and he met and made friends with some business people. He was trying to build this huge building in this neck of the woods in Brunswick. And he was obviously always a big player at the track as well, the racetrack, and with his brothers. And there was marinas, there was all sorts of different company enterprises that the book goes into. And it just seems that the profitability of drugs, especially in the sort of burgeoning pill days when...
Because they're illegal, that's why there's so much profit in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know about this. I know.
Well, think about it for a second.
Well, I know the system isn't brilliant, but I don't know of where there's an alternative system in the world that's
Amsterdam
working brilliantly. Well, Amsterdam's sort of changing their mind at the moment, aren't they?
Well, Amsterdam, they're trying to restrict it to foreigners because they're getting too much tourist dollars and they're trying to cut it out.
No, but isn't Amsterdam's concern that the harder drugs are bringing organised criminal activity?
But it's always been that way.
Yeah. Well, but I'm not saying let's turn to this.
Activity in Amsterdam is being par for the course. Ask a few of the boys who've been locked up recently about where their pills came from.
I want to ask you. We'll forget Tony for a second. I want to mention another case that's currently there, Charlie. And as a lawyer, I want to get your take on this. Danny Nikolic. He said